When everything around you starts to fall apart and the life you knew begins to slip through your hands, it's easy to think Allah has abandoned you. But what if the breaking is His way of bringing you back? Every crack in your heart, every tear that falls, is not a sign of His absence, it's proof of His closeness. He allows the storm not to destroy you, but to strip away what was never meant to stay. Sometimes He removes the illusion of control, so you can finally find peace in His control. The breaking isn't the end of your story, it's the moment Allah begins to rebuild you into someone far more beautiful than before. When life begins to shatter around you, it often feels like everything is being taken away, but in truth, something far greater is being given. The breaking is not destruction, it is divine reconstruction. Allah removes what was never meant to stay so He can build what was always meant to last. Sometimes your tears are not signs of weakness, they're the water that softens the soil of your heart, preparing it for new growth. Pain has a strange way of clarifying what really matters. When you lose what you thought you couldn't live without, you start to see what truly sustains you. In that emptiness, Allah plants something priceless: trust. You begin to realize that His breaking isn't cruelty, it's mercy in disguise. He breaks only to remove what blocks your view of Him. There are moments when the heart feels crushed under the weight of unanswered prayers. But it's in those very moments that Allah is closest. The silence isn't neglect, it's preparation. He's building your strength quietly, molding you through pain into someone who can carry the blessings you once weren't ready for. Sometimes Allah needs to empty your hands before He can fill them. You may feel stripped, vulnerable, even lost. But this is where healing begins. Because when you have nothing left but Him, you finally understand that He was always enough. The breaking exposes where you placed your dependence and brings it back to where it belongs. The breaking also purifies. It burns away attachment, pride, and illusion, leaving only sincerity. What's left after everything falls apart is often the most authentic version of you: humble, grateful, aware. You begin to pray differently, love differently, live differently. The storm that once frightened you becomes the reason you find your peace. Allah's wisdom works in patterns you may not see right away. What feels like loss now may one day reveal itself as rescue. He removes the wrong path, not to punish you, but to protect you from reaching a dead end. When everything seems to fall apart, perhaps it's because He's aligning your life with a better destiny you can't yet imagine. Every heart that has been broken by this world holds the potential to shine brighter than before. Allah never wastes pain. Every ache, every tear, every sleepless night becomes part of your spiritual refinement. Through that process, your heart learns to see not with the eyes of this world, but with the vision of faith. Sometimes you'll feel like you're falling apart in silence, unseen by anyone. But Allah sees every fracture, He knows every wound, and He heals in ways you don't expect. The world fixes the surface, Allah mends the soul. His rebuilding doesn't happen overnight, it happens quietly, layer by layer, until peace replaces pain. When you look back, you'll realize the breaking was never the end. It was the doorway to everything you were meant to become. The version of you that emerges after the storm is not the same one who entered it. It's stronger, softer, and more aware of who truly holds your heart. So, the next time you feel broken, remember, you are not falling apart, you are falling into place. Allah breaks only to rebuild with precision, love, and purpose. The pain that once felt unbearable will one day make sense, because the breaking was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to bring you home to the light that was waiting within you all along. Pain has a way of revealing what peace could never teach. It strips away layers you once thought were you, the pride, the certainty, the illusion of control, until only truth remains. Allah doesn't use pain to punish. He uses it to unfold you, to peel back the outer shell of your soul so the light inside can finally breathe. What breaks you in the world often builds you in faith, and through that breaking, you discover who you truly are beneath everything temporary. Sometimes Allah closes every door, not to trap you, but to guide you inward, to the one place you've been avoiding, your heart. Pain drives you to silence, and in that silence you start hearing what comfort once drowned out. You begin to realize that your heart isn't just a vessel of emotion, it's the meeting place between you and your Creator. Through pain, Allah doesn't distance you, He draws you closer to the center of what matters most. When you're in pain, everything slows down. You start to see the world differently, colors look sharper, silence feels heavier, and small kindnesses suddenly carry weight. This is no accident. Allah uses pain to heighten your awareness, to awaken you from the sleep of distraction. The discomfort you feel isn't the end, it's the birth of depth, of empathy, of true sight. Pain is how He opens the eyes of the soul. There are moments when pain feels like suffocation, when you wonder how you'll ever breathe again. But even then, Allah is near, holding you in ways unseen. The heart learns patience not in ease, but in ache. You learn to exhale your expectations and inhale trust. And little by little you begin to see how what once felt unbearable becomes the very thing that made you whole. Allah unfolds you through pain because comfort rarely moves you to growth. In ease you rest, in hardship you rise. He loves you too much to let you stay in places that shrink your soul. So He shakes you, tests you, and even lets your plans fall apart, not to harm you, but to show you how deeply He cares about who you're becoming. Pain is His way of sculpting your faith into something unshakable. There's a tenderness hidden in every ache, though you might not see it at first. Pain refines you like fire refines gold, burning away the excess, revealing the brilliance beneath. And while the fire feels cruel, it's really mercy in disguise. Allah knows what you can become, even when you've forgotten. Each hardship is His gentle reminder that you were made for more than what you've settled for. You might not understand why something hurts so deeply, but that's because Allah is teaching you through experience what words could never explain. Some lessons can't be read, they must be lived. Through loss you learn the weight of love. Through disappointment you learn detachment. Through heartbreak you learn surrender. The pain becomes a sacred classroom where your soul meets divine wisdom face to face. When you begin to heal, you'll notice that the pain didn't disappear, it transformed. It turned into compassion, into humility, into peace that doesn't depend on circumstance. What once brought tears now brings understanding. What once broke you now grounds you. That's the beauty of being unfolded by Allah. He doesn't just mend you, He remakes you with more gentleness and depth than before. The world teaches you to avoid pain at all costs. But faith teaches you to look within it. Because when Allah unfolds you, He isn't breaking you apart, He's expanding you. Your capacity to love, to trust, to hope grows wider than before. You start to see that the breaking wasn't about loss, it was about space, making room for what was always meant to enter your life and heart. And when you finally emerge from the storm, you realize that pain was never a curse. It was a teacher, a purifier, a messenger of mercy. The version of you that comes out of the trial is not weaker, it's wiser, softer, more connected to Allah. The unfolding is never easy, but it's sacred. Because through every ache, every tear, and every test, Allah wasn't trying to hurt you, He was teaching your soul how to fly. Sometimes the heart must be shattered before it can see clearly again. When everything you relied on begins to fall away, the people, the plans, the dreams, it feels like the ground has disappeared beneath you. But that collapse is not your undoing, it's your unveiling. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows your heart to break so that you can finally recognize the one who has been holding it all along. What feels like the end is often the beginning of your return. There is a sacred kind of pain that strips you of illusion. When the heart breaks, it exposes every place where you've placed your trust in something temporary. It's a painful clarity, the realization that no one and nothing was ever meant to carry you except Him. And though it hurts, that pain is a mercy. Because in that moment, you stop seeking fulfillment in creation and start seeking peace in the Creator. The shattering is not cruelty, it's compassion in disguise. Allah knows that if your heart remained whole in its attachments, it would never find its way home. So He allows it to crack, to bleed, to ache, not to destroy it, but to cleanse it. Every heartbreak is a reminder that the soul was not created to be satisfied here. The breaking is how He gently calls you back to Himself. When your heart shatters, it begins to remember what it forgot, that it once stood before Allah and promised to worship only Him. Every disappointment becomes a whisper. Return to the one who never leaves. Through loss, you remember love. in its purest form, the love that doesn't fade, doesn't fail, doesn't change with circumstance. That remembrance is the light that enters through the cracks. Sometimes you'll find yourself on the floor, crying over what you thought you couldn't live without. And in that moment, something beautiful happens. You begin to pray differently. You stop asking for the thing, and you start asking for strength. You stop pleading for the outcome, and you start pleading for closeness. That shift is not weakness, it's awakening. It's the soul remembering where peace truly lives. When Allah breaks your heart, He's not taking away love, He's redefining it. He's showing you that real love doesn't chain you to what's fleeting, it frees you from what blinds you. The heart that remembers its source no longer seeks endlessly, it rests. It learns to love people without worshiping them, to dream without depending, to live without losing its center. That's the power of divine heartbreak. The shattering teaches humility, a kind you can't learn through comfort. It softens your voice, deepens your empathy, and makes your prayers more sincere. You begin to feel the weight of others' pain, and your heart stretches wider in compassion. What once broke you now makes you a vessel of healing. Allah breaks hearts only to expand them. You may not notice it right away, but after the breaking, your faith feels different. It's no longer theoretical, it's lived. You've seen what happens when everything else fails, and you've witnessed how Allah still sustains you. That kind of faith cannot be shaken by storms because it was born in one. The heart that has been broken in His name no longer fears breaking again. Even in the ruins of your pain, there is beauty. The pieces that once felt scattered begin to form something new, a heart rebuilt on trust, not attachment. Allah doesn't restore you to who you were before the breaking. He creates someone wiser, stronger, and softer all at once. Every scar becomes a verse of your spiritual story, each one whispering, He was there. And when you finally stand again, you'll understand why it had to happen. The heartbreak was never a punishment, it was a path. Allah broke you only to bring you closer, to make you remember that your soul was never meant to lean on this world. The heart that shatters for His sake doesn't lose, it finds. It finds peace, purpose, and the unshakable truth that the one who broke you was also the one rebuilding you in love. Loss has a way of hollowing the heart, of making you feel as if the world has gone dim. You reach for what once was, only to find emptiness where something beautiful used to live. But what if loss is not the absence of blessing, but the arrival of one in disguise? Allah never takes without giving. He only replaces what was temporary with something eternal, something unseen. Every loss carries a secret, a hidden gift that unfolds only through patience. The first gift that loss brings is clarity. When Allah removes something from your life, the noise fades, the distractions fall away, and what remains is truth. You begin to see how much of your peace was tied to what could never last. That clarity hurts, but it also heals. It reminds you that peace built on anything other than Him will always crumble. Sometimes the loss itself becomes the mirror through which you finally see your dependence. You thought you needed that person, that dream, that plan. But in its absence, you discover a strength you didn't know you had. The pain reveals the depth of your resilience, the quiet endurance Allah placed in your heart long before you knew you would need it. That realization is a gift far greater than what was taken. Loss softens the soul in ways comfort never could. It humbles you, strips away pride, and leaves you bare before your Lord. And it's there, in that rawness, that sincerity blooms. Your du'as sound different, your gratitude deepens, and your heart starts seeking not escape from pain, but meaning within it. The softness born from loss is one of the purest forms of faith. In the beginning, it's hard to see any mercy in what's gone. The ache is too sharp, the silence too loud. But over time, the edges of pain begin to smooth, and you start to notice something. The space that loss left behind isn't empty. It's filled with lessons, with wisdom, with stillness. The void becomes sacred ground, where Allah teaches you what abundance really means. The gift hidden in loss often lies in redirection. You were walking towards something that wasn't meant for you, and Allah in His mercy turned you another way. The detour doesn't make sense while you're on it. But later, when you reach the destination meant for you, you'll understand why the path had to change. Every closed door is an act of divine protection. Loss also reveals love in its truest form. When Allah takes away what you love, He's reminding you that every form of love finds its origin in Him. You begin to see that no heart, no dream, no moment can fill you the way His presence can. That realization transforms your grief into remembrance, and remembrance is the sweetest kind of healing. There's a hidden mercy in being forced to start again. When life erases what you built, Allah hands you a blank page. It's frightening at first, the emptiness feels endless, but with time, you realize the blankness isn't punishment, it's potential. You get to write again, this time with wisdom, with gratitude, with surrender, guiding every word. What you lose often teaches you more than what you gain. Ease rarely pushes you to reflect, but pain does. It invites you to pause, to look inward, to find what still needs to be healed. And in that journey inward, you encounter parts of yourself that you didn't know existed, strength, compassion, faith that stretches beyond circumstance. That discovery is its own form of reward. When Allah Ta'ala takes, it's not subtraction, it's substitution. But He replaces differently. Sometimes He gives not in form, but in feeling. He takes away comfort and replaces it with consciousness. He removes attachment and gives you awareness. What you gain cannot be touched or measured, but it fills you in ways the world never could. Even grief, when held with faith, becomes worship. Every tear that falls with patience is seen. Every sigh is recorded. Allah promises that nothing is lost in His account. Not the pain, not the prayer, not the perseverance. He transforms what broke you into something that beautifies your record with Him. In that truth, loss becomes less of an end and more of an offering. When you lose something precious, you start realizing the fragility of everything you took for granted. That fragility isn't meant to frighten you, it's meant to free you. You stop clinging so tightly to what can vanish and start holding on to what never will, your connection to Allah. In that awareness lies peace that no loss can ever touch. Sometimes Allah takes something you love to make space for something that will love you back in a purer way. The relationships that end, the dreams that collapse, the plans that fade, all make room for better, deeper, more lasting forms of connection. The pain is temporary, but the wisdom it brings becomes part of who you are forever. Every loss creates distance between what is fleeting and what is real. It teaches you to walk lighter, to love without ownership, to give without expectation. You begin to understand that life isn't about holding on, but about learning when to let go with grace. And letting go isn't weakness, it's faith in motion. When you reflect on your journey, you'll realize that the things you lost often led you closer to your purpose. The heartbreak that broke you also broke you open. The disappointment that crushed you taught you humility. The dream that died cleared space for one that fit your soul better. The gift was never gone, it was simply wrapped in a lesson. The beauty of loss is that it reveals the truth about value. You start to see how much of what you chased was dust. And in that realization, you learn to treasure what lasts: prayer, peace, love, rooted in Allah. Loss, then, isn't emptiness, it's clarity. It shows you what's real, and in doing so, it saves you from wasting your heart on what's not. What you lost may never return, but the person you became through it, that's the miracle. The patience, the surrender, the strength, those are gifts that remain. Allah doesn't just replace what's gone, He transforms you so deeply that you no longer need what you once thought you couldn't live without. And when the ache finally softens, you'll look back and realize how gently Allah carried you. Every unanswered question found its peace in His wisdom. Every moment of despair led you closer to His mercy. What once felt like a wound has become a window, letting His light pour in. The loss didn't destroy you, it delivered you to Him. So when life takes something from your hands, don't despair. Remember that Allah's taking is never without purpose. The loss you grieve today might be the very reason your heart learns how to truly live. Because sometimes the gift isn't in what you receive, it's in what you're strong enough to release. And in that release lies freedom, the kind that only faith can give. You'll find yourself lighter, softer, and more at peace than before. The emptiness left by what you lost becomes a sacred space, one that fills not with regret, but with remembrance. Because the gift hidden in loss is not found in getting back what was gone, it's found in realizing you were never alone in losing it. There comes a time when the world feels heavy, when everything around you loses its color, and even your own reflection feels like a stranger. That's the darkness before the dawn of your soul. It's the space where your faith is tested, where your prayers feel unanswered, and where hope flickers like a dying flame. But Allah never lets a believer drown in the dark. He allows the night to deepen, only so that your eyes can finally see the light that was always there. The darkness is not punishment, it's purification. When Allah wants to bring you closer, He removes the illusions that blinded you comfort, control, and certainty. It feels like loss, but it's actually release. It's His way of saying, let go, and I will carry you. The night is not the absence of His mercy. It's the canvas upon which He paints your awakening. In the stillness of that darkness, your soul begins to whisper differently. You stop asking for life to get easier and start asking for your heart to grow stronger. You start to realize that light isn't something you chase, it's something you uncover. It was hidden beneath layers of fear and doubt, and now, through hardship, Allah is peeling them away. Sometimes, the dawn doesn't come in brilliance. It arrives quietly, a shift in how you see, how you feel, how you pray. The same pain that once broke you begins to heal you. The same tears that once fell in despair now fall in surrender. This is the moment when your soul begins to awaken, not because the storm has passed, but because you've learned to trust the one who sent it. There is a sweetness that only those who've walked through the dark can taste. It's the sweetness of knowing Allah not just as a concept, but as a constant, the one who stayed when everything else left. When your heart was silent, He was listening. When you were breaking, He was rebuilding. When you felt forgotten, He was writing your next chapter. The darkness also teaches patience, a kind of patience that doesn't just wait for dawn, but grows through the night. It's the patience that says, even here, even now, I know you are near. It's not passive endurance, it's active faith. It's choosing to trust when there's nothing to hold on to but trust itself. And that kind of patience lights the way long before the sun ever rises. Painful nights have their purpose. Allah hides you in darkness not to imprison you but to protect you while He reshapes you. Just as seeds must be buried before they bloom, your soul must endure the night before it blossoms. What feels like burial is actually planting. What feels like ending is preparation for a beginning that will take your breath away. In that sacred darkness, the ego begins to dissolve. You realize that you were never in control, and strangely, that realization doesn't break you, it frees you. The weight of carrying your own life finally lifts, and you begin to rest in the truth that Allah's plan has always been enough. What once terrified you now becomes your greatest comfort. Sometimes, you will feel like Allah is silent, but silence is also a form of communication. It's His way of turning you inward, teaching you to listen not with your ears but with your heart. Every unanswered prayer, every delayed blessing, every lonely night is a whisper saying, come closer, my servant. The light you seek is within. The darkness reveals your dependence, the sacred kind that anchors you. You start to see that it's not light itself that heals you, but what you learn in the dark. You learn faith without evidence, love without condition, surrender without certainty. Those lessons are the foundations of a heart that never wavers again. As your soul grows through the night, the world begins to look different. You stop measuring happiness by how bright the day is and start measuring peace by how still your heart feels. You realize that the light doesn't have to come from outside, it can rise from within. And that inner light, once found, never fades. Every dawn begins in silence. The darkest moments are often seconds before the first glow appears. When your life feels like endless night, remember dawn is written into every darkness by divine decree. The same hand that wrote your trial already wrote your relief. You just have to hold on long enough to witness it. The darkness humbles you. It reminds you that your strength was never your own, that every breath, every beat, every step forward was by His will. And when you emerge from it, you carry a new kind of strength, one that isn't loud or proud, but peaceful, steady, and rooted in trust. That's the strength that endures. Sometimes the dawn doesn't change your circumstances, it changes you. The pain may not disappear, but the way you carry it transforms. You stop running from it and start walking with it, hand in hand with the one who gave it meaning. That's when you realize the real dawn isn't out there, it's in you. The night is also where you meet yourself, the self stripped of distractions, stripped of masks. It's uncomfortable at first, but it's necessary. Because you can't know Allah deeply until you've met yourself, honestly. And in that meeting, you discover that your fragility and your faith were never opposites, they were meant to coexist. When dawn finally breaks, it doesn't erase the night, it redeems it. Every tear becomes light, every ache becomes clarity. You begin to see the mercy woven through every hardship, the love hidden in every loss. You no longer curse the dark, you thank it. Because without it, you would never have known how radiant your soul could shine. Allah never leaves a heart in darkness forever. The dawn always comes, not when you demand it, but when you're ready to receive it. When your eyes have adjusted, when your faith has deepened, when your heart has learned to see without seeing, that's when the first light appears. And it feels like coming home. Looking back, you'll realize that what you thought was darkness was actually the womb of your rebirth. Allah was recreating you quietly, stronger, softer, more surrendered. You weren't being broken, you were being reborn. The night didn't destroy you, it delivered you. And when the dawn of your soul finally rises, you'll understand the darkness was never your enemy. It was your teacher, your purifier, your guide. It showed you what light truly means. And in that new light, you'll no longer fear the night again, because you'll know the one who commands both. Pain has a way of speaking when words can't. It opens a place within you that you never knew existed, a place that feels raw, tender, and exposed. But what feels like a wound is often a window, a sacred opening through which the light of Allah enters. He allows pain not to break you, but to awaken you. Every ache is a reminder that the heart was never meant to be filled by this world, it was designed to be filled by Him. The wound is where surrender begins. When everything you tried to hold together falls apart, you realize that only Allah holds you. The people you depended on fade, the dreams you built crumble, and suddenly your heart stands alone. Yet, in that loneliness, you meet a love purer than any you've known, the love of the one who never leaves. That's the mercy hidden in pain. It strips away illusion until only truth remains. Through the wound, Allah teaches you the art of humility. Pain softens what pride once hardened. It quiets your ego and opens your heart to listen differently. The prayers that emerge from wounded places carry a kind of sincerity that joy could never teach. When you cry from a place of helplessness, those tears aren't weakness, they're worship. They are the language of a soul returning home. Sometimes the wound is the only way He can reach you. When life is easy, you forget. When it hurts, you remember. You remember how fragile you are, how fleeting the world is, and how desperately your soul needs its source. The wound becomes a compass pointing you back to Him. It says, you can't heal this on your own. And in realizing that, you rediscover divine dependence. There's beauty in the way Allah heals slowly, gently, unseen. He doesn't rush the process because the healing itself is sacred. Each moment of ache pulls you deeper into His remembrance. You start talking to Him more, relying on Him more, loving Him more. The wound that once felt like death becomes the reason you finally learn how to live not for the world, but for the one beyond it. The wound teaches empathy. When your heart bleeds, you begin to understand the pain of others in a way comfort never could. You learn to love softer, speak kinder, and judge less. You realize that everyone you meet is carrying their own unseen wounds, and that compassion is the balm that connects hearts in ways words never can. Pain makes you human, but more importantly, it makes you humble. Every wound carries a story written by Allah, a story of breaking and rebuilding. What you think was taken from you may have been replaced with something eternal. Sometimes He heals not by removing the pain, but by transforming your heart so that it no longer hurts in the same way. The pain remains, but it becomes sacred, a reminder of how far you've come and how faithfully He's carried you. The wound also reveals your strength, not the kind that resists pain, but the kind that allows it to soften you without destroying you. You learn that resilience isn't hardness, it's surrender. The strongest hearts are those that bow. The bravest souls are those that admit, I can't, but you can. That moment of surrender is where the wound becomes a doorway to peace. Sometimes Allah uses pain to realign your vision. What once looked like a setback becomes a signpost. You start to see how everything that hurt you was actually guiding you every delay, every heartbreak, every loss. Through pain, He redirects your steps from where you wanted to go to where you were always meant to be. The wound isn't random, it's revelation. There are seasons when the wound feels endless, when healing seems far and hope grows dim. But even then, something beautiful is happening beneath the surface. Just as the moon reflects light best in darkness, your soul reflects faith most clearly in trials. The night doesn't destroy the stars, it reveals them. In the same way, your wounds reveal the light of Allah's mercy already within you. The wound also becomes a mirror. In it, you see your limitations and His limitless compassion. You realize that every hardship was chosen for you, not against you. The pain you carry isn't proof of abandonment, it's evidence of attention. Allah saw something in you worth refining, worth strengthening, worth saving. So He allowed what would draw you closer, even if it came wrapped in pain. When you start to heal, you realize that the wound was never the enemy, it was the beginning of understanding. The ache that once made you question Allah now becomes the reason you see Him everywhere, in the sunrise after sleepless nights, in the calm after chaos, in the strength you didn't know you had. The wound didn't separate you from Him, it revealed Him to you. The beauty of divine wounds is that they create openings, not scars. Through them, your heart learns to breathe again, to feel again, to pray again. You may still carry the memory of pain, but it no longer carries you. Instead, it reminds you of the moment you found Allah in the places you least expected, in the silence, in the surrender, in the breaking. Healing is not forgetting, it's remembering differently. It's seeing your past not as punishment, but as preparation. The wound prepared you for deeper love, greater empathy, and a faith that can stand through any storm. Allah never wastes pain, He repurposes it. Every tear you shed was watering something beautiful inside you that is only now beginning to bloom. When the wound opens, don't rush to close it. Let it teach you. Let it speak. Let it show you the parts of your heart that still need light. Allah's not in the absence of pain, He's in how you rise from it. Every moment you choose trust over despair, you're healing. Every breath you take with faith is proof that the wound is already turning into a window. And one day, you'll look back and realize that what hurt you most also healed you most. The wound didn't end your story, it changed the way you tell it. It became the place where you found purpose, where you found peace, where you found Him. The same pain that made you fall to your knees became the reason you learned how to pray with your heart. The greatest irony of pain is that it brings you closer to peace. The deeper the wound, the wider the window becomes. And through that window, you begin to see the world differently, softer, slower, more grateful. You no longer ask, why me? But whisper, thank you for guiding me through this. That's when the wound becomes not just a place of pain, but a place of worship. The wound was never a mark of your weakness, it was a mark of your transformation. Allah trusted you with pain because He knew it would awaken your soul. He knew it would lead you to places comfort never could. You may have entered the storm fragile, but you'll emerge unbreakable, not because the pain is gone, but because you found Him within it. And so the wound becomes the window, clear, radiant, alive. Through it you see the reflection of a heart that has been broken open, only to be filled with light. You realize that healing was never about becoming who you were before, but becoming who you were meant to be, all along the version of you that lives in the presence of Allah. There is a kind of love that doesn't comfort you, it shatters you. It doesn't always come wrapped in warmth or ease, but in lessons and loss. Allah's love is not like the world's. It doesn't pamper your ego, it purifies your heart. When He loves you, He refines you, through breaking, not to wound, but to wake. Because sometimes, the only way to guide a wandering heart back home is through the very pain it tries to avoid. This love doesn't always give you what you want, it gives you what you need to find Him again. When the people you leaned on disappear, when the plans you made crumble, it's not abandonment, it's divine mercy. It's Allah pulling you away from what was taking His place. The heartbreak you're feeling isn't rejection. It's redirection, a rerouting toward the one who never leaves. The love of Allah is the most transformative kind because it doesn't seek your comfort, it seeks your growth. He breaks the attachments that drain you, the desires that blind you, and the illusions that confine you. In that process, you'll ache. But it's a holy kind of ache, the ache of healing, the ache of returning to something real. The breaking is proof that His love is still working on you. When Allah loves you, He purifies you. And purification isn't gentle, it burns, it cleanses, it exposes, it removes the false layers until only sincerity remains. Through that process, you begin to see yourself differently, not as someone who has lost, but as someone who is being lovingly stripped of everything that blocks the light. What feels like breaking is really unveiling. You'll notice that the pain that once brought you to your knees is the same pain that teaches you how to pray from the heart. Love from Allah doesn't just soothe, it transforms. It changes your conversations with Him. You stop asking for the world to bend to your desires and start asking for your heart to align with His will. That shift is where healing begins, when you stop running from His plan and start resting in it. The love that breaks you to bring you back is not a love of punishment, it's a love of protection. Allah sees what your eyes cannot. He removes people, closes doors, and allows disappointment to protect you from paths that would have destroyed your peace. What feels like loss in the moment is mercy unfolding in disguise. He breaks to save. Every tear that falls because of His love is counted, and every ache is answered. You may not see the wisdom yet, but His love is never random. It targets precisely what needs healing within you. Pride, fear, dependence, longing for what cannot last. He breaks you open to fill you differently, more purely, more completely. Through that pain, your heart becomes a vessel for something greater. Sometimes Allah's love arrives as silence. You beg for answers, and He gives you waiting instead. But even that waiting is mercy, because it's the stillness where your soul begins to listen. In silence, your dependency shifts from results to remembrance. You learn that His delay is not distance, it's design. His love is patient enough to perfect you through time. The love that breaks you also humbles you. It reminds you that no one is too strong to fall and no heart too secure to be softened. The fall itself is grace. Because through falling, you learn the sweetness of surrender. You realize that control was an illusion all along, and the peace you've been chasing comes only when you let go and trust the one who never falters. You'll know Allah's love is working in you when your pain starts to feel purposeful, when your tears no longer drown you but cleanse you, when your loss no longer feels like ending but like beginning. That's when you'll understand that He was never trying to hurt you. He was teaching you how to see. His love is not found in what He gives or takes, but in how both lead you back to Him. Through heartbreak, you learn the truth about divine intimacy. You begin to realize that love for Allah isn't built on ease but on endurance, on loving Him not just in the light but in the dark. True faith is staying when you can't feel Him, trusting when you can't see Him, and loving Him when He tests the very heart that beats for Him. The breaking that comes from His love doesn't destroy your spirit, it deepens it. It roots your faith in places that comfort never could. You stop seeking validation from the world and start seeking nearness to Him. You find beauty not in outcomes but in obedience. That's the quiet power of being broken by divine love. You lose the world but gain your soul. Every love story in this world is temporary, but your love story with Allah is eternal. He is the one who breaks you to remind you that no one else deserves your full devotion. Every time your heart attaches too deeply to something that fades, His mercy intervenes. He breaks what would have broken you completely, and in doing so saves you. It's only when the false lights fade that you can see the real one. The pain of losing worldly love often leads you straight into the arms of divine love. What you thought was the end of connection becomes the beginning of closeness. Through loss, you discover a love that doesn't disappoint, doesn't demand, doesn't disappear. The love that breaks you leads you to the love that heals you. When you've been broken by His love, your dua changes. You no longer ask for everything to make sense, you ask to be at peace with what doesn't. You no longer chase perfection, you seek purpose. That is the essence of spiritual maturity. Learning that Allah's love doesn't always remove the fire, but it always refines you through it. The love that breaks you also rebuilds you differently. You become softer with people, gentler with yourself, and more grateful for the smallest signs of mercy. The pain that once hardened you begins to melt. You start seeing Allah's kindness in places you once overlooked, in breath, in stillness, in hope. Love reshapes your eyes long before it reshapes your life. Over time, you'll see that being broken by Allah's love was the best thing that ever happened to you. It freed you from illusions, redirected your purpose, and rekindled your faith. You'll realize that He was never taking from you. He was returning you to yourself, to the part of you that remembers, trusts, and loves without fear. The beauty of this love is that it never truly leaves. Even when the pain fades, the lesson remains. You carry the mark of that divine breaking in your heart, not as a scar, but as a sign. It becomes the reminder that you were chosen to be remade, that He saw you worthy of being drawn closer, even if it meant being broken open. And when you finally look back on the journey, you'll see that every heartbreak was a thread in a divine tapestry. Every loss was a doorway, every tear a message. His love was there in every silence, every detour, every night you thought you couldn't survive. The love that broke you was the same love that rebuilt you stronger, purer, and forever anchored in Him. The love that breaks you to bring you back is not meant to leave you shattered. It's meant to make you whole, not as you were before, but as you were always meant to be. A soul that belongs entirely to the one who loved you enough to bring you home through the breaking. The greatest transformations rarely happen in noise, they unfold in silence. When life quiets and everything familiar fades, something within you begins to stir, softly, steadily, unseen. That's how Allah rebuilds a soul. Not through sudden flashes of change, but through the gentle, persistent whisper of His mercy. It's in the quiet aftermath of breaking that the heart begins to heal in ways words can't describe. Rebuilding from within begins the moment you stop fighting the stillness. At first it feels uncomfortable, even empty. But in that emptiness, Allah is clearing space. The noise of the world fades, so you can finally hear your own soul, the one that's been calling for Him all along. What looks like pause is actually purpose. The silence is not absence, it's invitation. Allah rebuilds differently than people do. The world fixes by replacing, but Allah restores by renewing. He doesn't just mend what's broken, He transforms it into something far stronger, more compassionate, and more aligned with His light. Every wound becomes a brick, every tear a drop of cement. Slowly, the heart takes shape again, this time built on surrender instead of illusion. Rebuilding from within is a silent miracle, because no one else sees it happening. To the world, you might look the same. You still smile, still walk, still breathe, but inside something sacred is forming. Faith is returning, peace is growing roots, and trust is settling deep where fear once lived. It's quiet work, holy, patient, unseen. The beauty of this rebuilding is that it teaches you to depend on Allah in a way you never did before. The hands that once reached outward for help now rise upward in prayer. The heart that once chased the world now turns inward, seeking the one who controls it. What once broke you becomes the reason you finally learn what wholeness really means. There's something divine in how Allah uses pain to rebuild. He doesn't erase your past, He redeems it. The memories that once haunted you become lessons. The scars that once embarrassed you become signs of His mercy. You start to see your story differently, not as a collection of wounds, but as evidence of how faithfully He carried you through every one. Sometimes, rebuilding begins with isolation. When Allah removes people or opportunities, it's not rejection, it's redirection. He's pulling you away from what kept you distracted so you can rebuild in private. Like a seed hidden beneath the soil, you grow where no one can see, nourished by faith, watered by patience. And when the time is right, you bloom effortlessly, beautifully, and on His command. In the process of rebuilding, you learn that silence doesn't mean stillness. Even when it feels like nothing is happening, Allah is at work within you, aligning your heart, calming your spirit, rewriting your purpose. What you call waiting, He calls preparation. What you see as delay, He sees as design. The quiet season is not wasted, it's sacred. Rebuilding from within also means learning to love the unseen. You stop measuring progress by what the world can notice. You start finding joy in the small victories, in a calm breath after anxiety, in a whispered prayer after doubt, in a peaceful morning after nights of restlessness. The miracles may be small, but they're real and they matter. The process is not always easy. Some days you'll feel like you're moving backward. You'll question the purpose of your pain. But even in those moments, you are being built. The cracks in your faith are being filled with light. The patience you practice today will become the peace you live in tomorrow. Every step, even the uncertain ones, leads you closer to strength. There's a reason why Allah rebuilds quietly, because real healing doesn't need an audience. It's between you and Him. The world might see you smile again, but only you know the storms that brought you there. And that secret, that private journey of renewal, becomes the most intimate form of worship, faith lived, not spoken. As you rebuild, you begin to see beauty in simplicity. You realize that you don't need much to feel full. A sincere prayer, a kind word, a moment of reflection. What once felt like emptiness now feels like peace. The same heart that once craved noise now finds comfort in the quiet. That's how you know the rebuilding is real, when silence feels like home. Allah rebuilds you by teaching you detachment, not from love, but from illusion. You learn to love people for His sake, not as your lifeline. You learn to hold blessings loosely, knowing they belong to Him. And in that detachment lies the secret of inner peace. Nothing can break you anymore, because your heart no longer clings to what fades. Every moment of healing is a reminder that Allah hasn't left you. The very fact that your heart still beats with faith after breaking is proof of His mercy. You survived what you thought would destroy you, not because you were strong, but because He was strengthening you in silence. The rebuilding is His love story, written in the language of patience. When you rebuild from within, your gratitude changes. You stop thanking Allah only for what He gives and start thanking Him for what He removes. You understand that both are blessings. One nourishes your body, the other purifies your soul. What once felt like loss now feels like liberation. What once felt like breaking now feels like becoming. The miracle of rebuilding is that it doesn't just restore what was lost, it reveals who you are. You discover parts of yourself that pain once buried: resilience, empathy, faith. You realize that your heart didn't just survive the storm, it grew wings in it. And now it carries you not back to who you were, but toward who you were meant to be. In that quiet transformation, you begin to love Allah in a deeper way, not just for what He gives, but for how He changes you. His love stops feeling like comfort and starts feeling like creation. You understand that every hardship was His way of sculpting you into something purer, something capable of seeing Him in everything. There's a sacred beauty in realizing that you no longer need the world's validation. You've been rebuilt by something greater. The world didn't see your tears, but Allah did. The world didn't feel your breaking, but He was the one who caught every piece. That truth alone becomes the anchor of your peace, knowing that you were never alone in your rebuilding. As the process unfolds, you'll notice how effortlessly peace begins to replace panic. You no longer force healing, you allow it. You no longer beg for understanding, you trust timing. That's the miracle, not that your life suddenly becomes perfect, but that your heart finds contentment even when it isn't. And when the rebuilding is complete, though in truth, it's never truly done, you'll stand quietly and realize that the silent seasons were the most beautiful of all, because they taught you how to breathe again, how to believe again, and how to belong again, not to the world, but to the one who rebuilt you from within. The breaking is never the end. It's the doorway to something more beautiful than you imagined. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows your heart to crack, it's not to destroy you, it's to release the light within you that could only shine through the broken places. What you call loss is often birth. The old you, the one that depended on things that could never last, begins to fade. And through the breaking, a new version of you, softer, wiser, and closer to Allah, begins to rise. Becoming after breaking is not a sudden event. It's a slow, sacred unfolding. You don't wake up one day whole again. You wake up different. The same pain that once brought you to tears now brings you to prayer. The same silence that once scared you now feels peaceful. This is how Allah rewrites your story, not by erasing your suffering, but by transforming the way you see it. When everything falls apart, your first instinct is to hold on tighter. But with time, you learn that real peace comes not from gripping, but from releasing. Allah doesn't ask you to carry what He intends to take. The breaking teaches you trust, the kind that doesn't demand explanations, the kind that simply says, you know what, I cannot. That surrender is the beginning of becoming. Becoming means learning to see beauty where there used to be pain. It's realizing that the heartbreak was not punishment but purification. Every tear washed away a piece of pride. Every disappointment freed you from an illusion. Allah doesn't break you to leave you empty. He breaks you to fill you differently with clarity, humility, and faith that no storm can shake. There's a quiet power in realizing that your scars don't make you weaker. They make you real. They tell the story of someone who fell and was lifted, who broke and was rebuilt. The beauty of becoming after breaking is that you stop hiding your pain. You start honoring it as the pathway that led you to Allah. You begin to see that brokenness was never the opposite of beauty, it was its beginning. In the aftermath of breaking, your heart becomes a sacred space. It no longer chases everything that glitters. It starts yearning for what lasts, for stillness, for purpose, for peace. You begin to crave Allah the way you once craved the world. That shift is not small, it's divine. It's the moment your soul starts remembering what it was always made for, connection with Him. Becoming after breaking means you stop asking why me and start whispering, what are you teaching me? The question changes everything. Pain no longer feels like punishment, it feels like guidance. You start to see wisdom woven into every wound. You begin to understand that Allah's love isn't always shown through ease. Sometimes it's revealed most clearly through ache. The process of becoming is messy and holy at once. Some days you'll feel healed, other days you'll feel hollow. But both are part of growth. Healing doesn't mean the absence of pain. It means learning how to live with it gracefully. You start walking differently, not with fear, but with faith. You move slower, but with more intention. In the silence of your healing, you begin to notice Allah in the smallest things, in the breath that steadies after crying, in the verse that finds you when you need it most, in the peace that settles where pain once lived. These are the signs of becoming quiet, subtle, sacred. They remind you that Allah has been with you through every step, even when you couldn't feel Him. The beauty of becoming lies in the transformation of your heart. You stop measuring success by what you gain and start measuring it by what you let go of fear, pride, attachment. You start realizing that you can lose everything and still have peace if you still have Him. The world becomes lighter because you've learned where home truly is. Becoming after breaking is like dawn after a long night. The darkness doesn't disappear all at once, but slowly, gently, light starts to return. And when it does, it feels softer. Not blinding, but healing. You realize that Allah didn't remove the night because He wanted you to experience the beauty of seeing the light emerge from it. That's the essence of growth. It's born from shadow. You begin to understand that your breaking was a conversation between your soul and its creator. He asked you to trust, and you learned to answer with patience. He asked you to wait, and you learned to breathe. He asked you to let go, and you finally did. Through that exchange, you became something greater than before, someone anchored in faith, not circumstance. Every soul that has been broken and rebuilt carries a light that others can feel. You start to comfort others differently. You don't just speak, you understand. You don't just advise, you hold. You become the kind of person whose very presence whispers, you will heal too. That's the hidden gift of breaking. It makes you a vessel of mercy for others. Sometimes you'll realize that what you thought was an ending was actually an answer. The thing you lost was never meant to stay, it was meant to free you. Allah removes only what keeps you small. And in that removal lies growth into the person you were always meant to be. One whose peace doesn't depend on possession. The beauty of becoming is that you begin to fall in love with Allah's plan. You stop needing to understand every detail. You stop rushing His timing. You start living in surrender, not struggle. You realize that faith isn't about getting what you want, it's about trusting that whatever happens, you are safe in His care. Every heart that has been through breaking understands silence differently. You learn to sit with pain without needing to fix it. You learn that the answers you once searched for in the world can only be found in sujud. The ground becomes your refuge. The tears become your prayer. And in that humility, you find strength you never knew you had. There's beauty in realizing that Allah doesn't rebuild you into who you were. He rebuilds you into who you were always meant to be. The old version of you couldn't hold this level of peace. It couldn't carry this kind of faith. The breaking made room for both. You had to lose yourself to find your soul again. The longer you walk this path, the more you see how pain and peace aren't opposites, they're partners. One refines the other. You can't appreciate ease without hardship. You can't recognize light without shadow. Allah weaves both into your journey so you can taste the fullness of His wisdom. That's the beauty of becoming balanced through surrender. You'll notice that your gratitude changes after the breaking. You start thanking Allah not just for what feels good, but for what grew you. You thank Him for closed doors, for delays, for endings, because now you see they were all protection. Gratitude becomes a form of worship, not for what was given, but for what was withheld. The beauty of becoming is subtle. It's the calm after the chaos, the smile that comes easier, the peace that doesn't need proof. It's when you stop explaining your journey and start living it. The world may never understand what happened within you, but Allah does, and that knowing is enough. There will come a day when you look back and realize that your breaking was your blessing. You'll see how every fall taught you to rise higher, how every wound taught you tenderness. You'll understand that the pain didn't ruin you, it refined you. You didn't just survive, you transformed. And when that realization settles in your heart, it feels like dawn. You finally understand that beauty doesn't come from what stayed perfect, it comes from what was rebuilt with patience and grace. Becoming after breaking isn't about finding who you were, it's about embracing who you've become. A heart that remembers, a soul that trusts, and a peace that whispers. Every breaking was love leading me home. Gratitude doesn't always begin in comfort sometimes, it begins in chaos. There comes a point when you've cried every tear, when your plans lie scattered, and your strength feels drained. And yet, in that moment, something unexpected happens. Peace begins to rise from the ruins. You start to see the storm differently. You realize that what once terrified you was actually teaching you how to trust. The storm wasn't there to drown you, it was sent to cleanse you. The storm feels cruel. You stand in the middle of loss, unable to see meaning in the mess. You ask why Allah would allow this pain, this confusion, this silence. But slowly, as time passes, the edges of your fear begin to soften. The winds that once howled start to sound like whispers of guidance. You begin to understand He wasn't trying to hurt you. He was showing you where real strength lives. The storm is mercy disguised as struggle. It arrives to wash away what cannot stay, the false attachments, the fragile hopes, the illusions of control. You resist it, but Allah's love is firm. He knows what you cannot see, that peace built on illusion is temporary. So He shakes the foundation to rebuild you on truth. Every gust of wind becomes an act of purification. It's in the storm that faith is no longer an idea, but a lifeline. You stop holding on to people and start holding on to prayer. You stop trusting your plans and start trusting His will. The storm strips you of every false anchor until only Allah remains. And when that happens, when you finally find stillness in His remembrance, you realize this storm was never against you, it was for you. Gratitude begins quietly, not with smiles or ease, but with surrender. It's the whisper in your chest that says, I don't understand this, but I know you do. That's the seed of faith that storms plant. Over time, that seed grows into something steady, something unshakable. The believer who emerges from the storm no longer asks for calm skies, they ask for the strength to weather whatever comes. Every soul that's been through a storm carries a new kind of wisdom. You start to see that pain and mercy aren't opposites, they are intertwined. What breaks you also rebuilds you. What hurts you also humbles you. And humility is the doorway to peace. You begin to thank Allah not for removing the storm, but for staying with you through it. The storm exposes what your comfort could never reveal. It shows you the difference between what you wanted and what you needed. You wanted ease, He gave you endurance. You wanted answers, he gave you awareness. You wanted control, he gave you surrender. Each wave that once felt like punishment becomes a gift of purification. Through the storm, Allah teaches you how to let go. You realize that nothing in this world is truly yours, not people, not plans, not even peace. Everything belongs to Him. And when your heart finally accepts that, the storm loses its power to terrify. You stop seeing it as chaos and start seeing it as choreography, every wave moving in divine rhythm. When you finally reach gratitude, it doesn't erase the pain, but it transforms it. You look back at your tears and see them as prayers. You look back at your silence and recognize it as a conversation with Allah. You begin to thank Him for the lessons hidden in the lightning. You understand that the storm wasn't taking, it was teaching. The beauty of thanking Allah for the storm is that it changes how you see every trial afterward. You stop asking for a life without storms and start asking for a heart that can stay steady within them. You stop fearing hardship because you've seen what it creates, a depth of faith you never knew you were capable of. Gratitude after the storm isn't naive, it's enlightened. It's not the denial of pain, but the understanding of purpose. You realize that every storm has its mercy, every loss its lesson, every delay its design. The believer's gratitude is not just for blessings seen, but for the unseen wisdom that carried them through the storm. Sometimes the storm doesn't change your situation, it changes your sight. You begin to see how Allah's mercy was always surrounding you, even in moments you felt forgotten. The wind that knocked you down was also lifting you out of places you didn't belong. Every difficulty becomes a verse in the story of His care. When you thank Allah for the storm, you are thanking Him for the becoming. The person you are now, calmer, stronger, gentler, didn't exist before the storm. It was born through it. The pain carved space in your heart for empathy. The waiting taught you patience. The loss taught you surrender. Gratitude is what ties it all together. It's a strange kind of beauty when your tears turn into prayers of thankfulness. You find yourself whispering, "If that storm hadn't come, I would have never known this peace." That's when you realize that Allah's hardest tests often lead to His sweetest gifts. The same storm that shook your life became the reason you found your grounding in Him. The heart that learns to thank Allah for the storm also learns to live lighter. You stop holding on to expectations and start holding on to trust. You stop needing the world to make sense because you know that His wisdom always does. Gratitude becomes your compass, guiding you through chaos with calm. When you truly thank Him for the storm, your faith becomes effortless. You don't need to see the outcome to believe in His plan. You don't need to understand the pain to trust its purpose. That's when you know you've matured, when gratitude isn't a reaction to blessings, but a way of seeing the world. The storm becomes a mirror. In it, you see your fragility and His power, your weakness and His mercy. You realize that without the storm, you might never have known Him this intimately. The winds that once frightened you now remind you of how deeply He loves you enough to bring you back through breaking. In hindsight, you'll see how the storm taught you to depend on something unshakable. Before, your peace depended on circumstances. Now it depends only on connection. The world may still shift, but your heart stays anchored, not because the sea is calm, but because your trust is. The greatest gratitude is born in hindsight. When you look back and see how every loss protected you, every delay directed you, and every heartbreak awakened you, you realize that Allah didn't just save you from the storm, He saved you through it. Every drop of rain was a drop of mercy, even when you couldn't recognize it. When you finally thank Allah for the storm, your relationship with Him changes. You stop approaching Him only in desperation and start approaching Him in devotion. You understand that He was never far. He was in every wind that guided, every thunder that woke, every calm that followed. And when the sun rises again, you no longer see the storm as a curse, but as a chapter 1, written with wisdom, signed with love, and sealed with mercy. You realize you didn't just survive, you were transformed. You found the beauty of surrender and the freedom of trust. So you lift your hands, not to ask, but to thank. You thank Him for the pain that purified, the loss that redirected, and the storm that rebuilt you. Because now you understand without the storm, you would have never known the depth of His love or the strength of your faith. And in that realization lies the sweetest kind of peace. There comes a quiet moment after every storm when the winds fade and all that's left is stillness. In that silence, you begin to see what the storm was truly for. It wasn't there to break you, it was there to bring you back to faith, to clarity, to Allah. The thunder was never anger, it was a call to awaken. The rain was never punishment, it was mercy falling in disguise. When you finally thank Allah for the storm, you rise with a heart that's not afraid of weather anymore. You realize that peace was never the absence of chaos, it was the presence of trust. Every trial, every tear, every moment of uncertainty was shaping you into someone who sees Him in everything. That's the real miracle, not that the storm ended, but that you learned to praise Him even while it raged. So now, as you stand beneath the calm sky, remember, storms don't come to destroy believers, they come to deepen them. And when you can whisper Alhamdulillah for the rain that once terrified you, you've reached the kind of faith that no storm can shake again.